Good morning and good afternoon, and Assalamu alaikum to everybody who's being part of this webinar series. If the participants can hear me, please type 1. If you cannot, please type 2. You will have about 2 minutes to sort this kind of issues if we have any. I repeat, if you can hear my voice clearly, please type 1. If not, then type 2. If you have any difficulty in hearing our voice, could you please disconnect and then rejoin the process? So that will sort a lot of problems in case if you have. Looks like we are okay. So let me once again welcome everybody who has joined so far and those who are going to join in a while. This is NIE Webinar Series, and this is the 8th episode of the series, and this will be our last for this year. The area that we're going to look into today is early intervention, and we will be focusing on, or rather drawing the experiences of 3 well-known experts in the area. As we have said, the topic that we're going to look into will be early intervention, opening doors for inclusive education in the early years. And we will be looking into the importance of early intervention and effective strategies and teachers and the parents' role. And we will also be looking at various questions that's going to pop up during the session. Initially, we like to introduce the panelists. We have 3 this time around this webinar. We have Dr. Julie Dillon. Some of you may know her. She is from the Queensland University of Technology, and she works in the School of Early Childhood and Inclusive Education as a senior lecturer, but her main focus is research. And she is well known for the research she has been conducting, and she's been looking into the issues of pedagogies associated with inclusive practices. She has worked as a teacher as well. So I would be briefly going through each panelist before we start the session of each panelists. So I would just introduce basically the panelists brief, and we have like Dr. Julie, and we also have Dr. Manolo, and she is from, she also well into the research, and she also worked as a teacher and also a principal, and rose from her experiences in those areas. And we also have Dr. Fatma Nishan from our own country, and we will be they will be highlighting those issues that they have experienced. They will be sharing their practices, and the order will be like, first it would be Dr. Julie will start the first presentation or the first session, and then we would move on to Dr. Manolo, and it will be ended up by Fatma Nishan. After this, we would have a question and answer time where the participants can draw a lot of information from them, from their worst experience. So first of all, let me request Dr. Julie to go ahead with her presentation. Welcome, Dr. Julie.
Welcome. Right, I have my slides up now. Thank you very much. So welcome to this webinar series, everybody. Early Intervention, Opening Doors for Inclusive Education in the Early Years. I'd like to say, first of all, thank you very much to my new friends and colleagues at the National Institute of Education and Ministry of Education for this very, very kind invitation today. So thank you. I'd also like to say welcome to what I understand are many parents and teachers in the audience, and thank them for all the wonderful work they do with children. Next slide, please. So here I've provided a map of Australia. I'm in Brisbane here, just on the right of the map, halfway down. It's usually beautiful, but there's just about a big storm to break. So if I look terrified, you know why. And please come and visit us again when we have a chance to be face-to-face friends. Also on my slides, you'll see a number of photos illustrating best practice, and a lot of these photos have been provided from educational sites, mainly in Queensland. So just as a very, very brief background of Australia's inclusion journey, this started with the introduction of the Disability Discrimination Act in 1992, which makes it unlawful to discriminate against a person in many areas of public life, including employment, education, getting or using services, renting or buying a house or unit, and accessing public places because of their disability. So in Australia, our current position to include and support hopefully describes the current view with respect to young children with additional needs, with the underlying assumption that children with diverse needs should be fully included in society, and they should be provided with the support required to ensure their inclusion and meaningful participation. So even though this is Australia's inclusion journey, my research and time doing international webinars and workshops, I hear many of the same stories and challenges, etc. So I think that we've probably got more in common than what we don't have in common. Next slide, please. So what is diversity and what is inclusion? All children and families bring their diverse experiences, perspectives, expectations, knowledge and skills to their learning. When discussing this topic, it is important to remember we're all diverse with certain unique needs. And I'm not just talking about one set of children with certain disability, but collectively as a whole, and children and family all have diverse needs. So if we come from a place of understanding this concept that they're all unique, planning and supporting a diverse range of families and children become embedded in our everyday practice. So diversity and variation exists in every classroom, and being different from others is one thing many of us as adults cherish. However, being different by choice has very different implications from being different by accident. So developing an inclusive classroom or curriculum it should be one that's relevant to the diverse needs of students. And we can look at educational needs rather than focusing attention on labels that in many cases provide very little information how to provide an appropriate educational, maximise children's development in all areas. And I think that is where the trick lies, or not the trick, but the tension lies in looking at children as individuals and not using labels. Next slide, please. So when we're planning diversity and inclusion, our common practice is to use a differentiated curriculum to ensure all children provided with learning experiences which are challenging yet suited to their needs, and provide support so that all children can engage in the curriculum. So because Australia is a very multicultural society, we understand that we're teaching a range of children, that all our children are achieving to the best of their abilities and feeling valued. And again, we focus on the child and not on a single label. So how do we do that? Next slide, please. Thank you. So what we do is look at children's learning from a strengths-based approach. And sometimes that seems a little bit counterintuitive, because I know when I talk to my pre-service teachers, go, no, but we have to fix all these things. Well, if you take it from a strengths-based approach, it's from understanding that children's learning is dynamic. It's very complex, as we know, with teaching in inclusive practices, but it should also be holistic as well. So we try to work a lot with carers, families, and also allied health professionals such as speech therapists, etc., in our inclusive practices and early intervention. We understand that children actively construct their understandings with us, whether that's teacher-led or child-led, and also that children are active participants. So educators move beyond preconceived expectations about what children can do and learn, and educators respect and work with each child's unique qualities and abilities. So in our early childhood context, hopefully you can start to see a link that diversity and inclusive education is a lens with which we can observe a recognition of children's learning as holistic and dynamic. I always say never on what a child can learn, and encourages us to view children as learners who come from diverse cultural, ethnic or linguistic groups. So the children that we see in our classrooms vary in many ways in their behaviours, in the ways of interacting with others, with their challenging behaviours, including identified behavioural disorders, their learning styles and their learning rates. And we're also, with diversity, we also acknowledge gifted learners and learners with learning disabilities or learners with intellectual disabilities. And also our learners vary in the ways of using the environment because of a range of physical, health and sensory problems such as vision and hearing. So you can see our diverse culture within classrooms and the numerous different types of children that we include in our classrooms. Next slide, please. So as I said, oops, I think it's next one as well, please, if you, thank you very much. So this is where this tension lies about we don't want to classify children, but in some ways we have to in order to be able to source from the government the funding that they require. So the government kind of makes us do this. So the classifications we use are physical, sensory, cognitive, health conditions, social, emotional, such as ASD and ADHD, communication, and learning variations such as reading difficulty and dyslexia, which is starting to get quite a lot of traction and notoriety in Australia. Next slide, please. So the importance of early intervention. Next slide, please. Next. Does it want to go next? There we are. Thank you. Early intervention is a process of identifying children at risk as early as possible. And I think the earlier that we can do that, the better, and whether that's formally or informally, and providing programs designed to maximise children's potential for development in order to minimise the effects of complex learning profiles. So early intervention, it has been shown through research, and I know this through my own practice as well, is minimising the effects of a disabling condition on children's growth and development, prevent early development irregularities becoming more serious problems, and prevent the development of secondary disabilities. So if I use, say, autism as an example, if we can give children with autism the opportunity to improve their social and emotional capabilities, then we open the door for them to be able to practice, say, their speech and language skills, such as around pragmatics and semantics, which we know that they have a great deal of challenges with. Next slide, please. So if we have a quick look at our curriculum that we use in Australia, the Early Years Learning Framework, or I love that we call it the ELF on inclusion, you can see here even the title of the ELF, belonging, being, becoming, has a very strong basis for inclusive practice. So it acknowledges social, cultural, and linguistic diversity, children's experiences, and equitable access to resources and participation. So it acknowledges that inclusion means that children with additional needs attend preschool, childcare, and school with their typically developing peers. However, inclusion is not about a particular curriculum or instructional strategy. It's really more about a philosophy of respecting and including all children. Next slide, please. There's 5 principles to the ELF. Principle 3 has high expectations and equity. So there's 2 that are specific to inclusion, committed to equity and belief in all children's capacities to succeed, regardless of diverse circumstances and abilities, and recognise and respond to barriers to children achieving educational success. Next slide, please. The ELF Principle 4, respect diversity, in curriculum valuing or reflecting the practices, values and beliefs of families, and recognise that diversity contributes to the richness of our society and provides a valid evidence base about ways of knowing. Next slide, please. Now, I've looked through some of the questions people have already kindly sent through, and a lot are, and I've always find this, no matter where we're, this I think our universal understanding of how to plan and accommodate inclusive classrooms. So I always take a action research sort of approach, which is really just a teaching and learning cycle. So this is for the whole, because we think of inclusion as a community of learners, of observing the whole classroom, planning for teaching, enacting the action plan, so the strategies that we've devised for the whole classroom, and then evaluating and reflecting on the successes hopefully that we've had, and then we start the cycle again. Next slide, please. What is important to remember when we're thinking of inclusive early childhood programs is it's a holistic view of the child, including their families and whoever is working with the child. It's a class, the class is a community of learners, so everyone is considered in an inclusive program. There's a great deal of collaboration. Teachers really shouldn't be doing these things by themselves because it's important to support each other as well. The program has an individual focused support and there should be flexible teaching and learning. And I guess sometimes that comes through with a great deal of experience. Next slide, please. So sometimes children require individual learning plans, and this might be for a whole host of reasons. And this might be just this, I see this as really a mini way of doing an action research plan for learners. So what we're thinking of is identifying children's baseline abilities and current competencies, developing broad aims within a developmental domain, writing very specific behavioural objectives for the child to achieve within a certain time, developing very specific teaching strategies, and then evaluating if those strategies have been successful, and then starting all over again. So this might be for a week, a month, a unit, a year. It depends on the child and what you're trying to achieve. And often I've heard people say, I just don't know where to start. It just seems so complicated. My experience has been, if you just pick one of the major things that are troubling you at the moment, and just focus on those, then it seems to have a domino effect in fixing other things as well, which we might talk about later. So just in finishing, what does successful, next slide please, sorry. What does successful inclusion look like? Well, the basis of successful inclusion is based deeply in teacher attitudes to inclusion, and positive teacher attitudes towards diversity and inclusion are really important. This requires valuing and providing for the individual child, as well as recognizing the universality of all children's needs. The diverse learner is a person with the same basic needs as other children, as an individual whose specific requirements can be met through appropriate assessment and planning. The child should be understood in the context of his or her family, as well as in social and cultural contexts in which they live. The child is a citizen with rights, which include the right to education. So my top tips here, next slide please, for a successful inclusion. Next slide, please, is get a little help from your friends. So draw on your teaching team and your allied health professionals. Welcome the student in your classroom. Be the teacher of all of the students. Make sure everyone belongs to the classroom community, including the parents. Clarify shared expectation with team members. Provide active and participatory learning experiences. Adapt classroom arrangements, materials and strategies. And make sure that support surfaces actually help you. And so final slide is, my final slide, if we could have the next slide, is a very big thank you. Thank you for listening to me today. It's very much appreciated, and I wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Julie has taken us through the Australian inclusive journey in a nutshell. Thank you, Julie. Julie, for doing that. And we will be coming in a later segment on the question and analysis segment, where the participants probably can look into various questions that they have, or the thought process that they have had. And the other panelists also will be adding to, if they want, on a particular question that is there for the panel. So next will be our second panelist will be Dr. Manolis Santiago. She is from Luzon, Philippines, and as from the documents you already know, she holds management. She is a specialist in the management area as well, and she was worked as a school teacher, as a school principal. At present, she is working at the City Schools Division of Santa Rosa as a school division superintendent. She is an advocate of education, inclusive education, and a lead fellow at QUT Calvers. Welcome, Dr. Manolis.
Thank you. Hello. Mabuhay. I am your second panelist for today, Ma'am Ella Tolentino from the Philippines. It is indeed a great opportunity to be sharing with the teachers, the school leaders, and my newfound friends in Maldives to share our best practices in inclusive education for our kindergarten learners. Okay. So this is entitled Building Developmental Opportunities for Early Childhood Learners and for Learners with Special Needs, an Inclusive Education Practice for Early Learners. Next slide, please. Um, Inclusivity of kindergarten program in the Philippines is embedded in two legal bases. First, it is contained in RA 10157 or Kindergarten Act of 2012 and under Section 4, 4.1.1, Inclusiveness of Kindergarten Education, the aim is to cater to the needs of the learners with special needs, the gifted, those with disabilities, and other diverse learners. The following services shall be adapted. There are four services indeed. First is Head Start program for the gifted. Second, this is for early learners, 5 years old and below. Second is Early Intervention program for children with disabilities, those with um, handi- handi- physical handicap or intellectual disability or developmental delays. The third is Kindergarten Madrasa program. It is intended for our Muslim learners to study Islamic values and Arabic language. And the second is and the fourth, is the Indigenous People Education or IPED for early learners. These are for children from our native tribes like Aitas, Mangyan of Mindoro, and um, other children living in the mountain areas. Next slide, please. Another legal basis is RA 10533, called as Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013. Under this act, Section 8 stipulated the implementation of program for inclusive education, and it is inclusiveness of enhanced basic education, which means that the implementation of programs designed to address the physical, intellectual, psychosocial, and cultural needs of learners are really important. And under that, the kindergarten curriculum shall be learner centered, inclusive, and developmentally appropriate. Next slide, please. Inclusion of children with the developmental delays and disabilities in kindergarten program uses combination strategy with age appropriate placements that occur when children receive services within within the environment with the peers of similar ages who do not have disabilities. So it uses developmentally appropriate strategies with age appropriate placement. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. So, how do we do inclusion in the Philippines? So, in the Philippines, we involve more than merely integrating children with disabilities into the same physical space as classmates who do not have disabilities. We require that children with disabilities have consistent opportunities to interact with other children and participate in the same activities as their peers. And of course, inclusive setting allows services to be provided in natural environment. It could either be in home, school, or in the playground, as what Dunlap 2009 states in her book. Next slide, please. So there are 11 dimensions of inclusive education in the Philippine context. One of the dimension which is very important in the implementation of early childhood education in inclusive settings, the learning environment foster a learner-friendly, collaborative, secure, safe, and barrier-free educational setting. Educational settings shall promote harmonious relationships, respect for diversity, and practice of positive discipline among learners, teachers, parents, and administrators. So they should have develop a culture of acceptance. Next slide, please. It is in this context that the lead fellow of Calabarzon Lighthouse for Inclusive Education decided to create a program, an umbrella program which is called Project K3. Kaklase kasama kita, in English it's classmate, we are together. Okay, under the Project K3 program, BDO, or Building Developmental Opportunities for Kindergarten and Learners with Special Needs, had been developed through the Division Education Program Supervisor of the City Schools Division of Santa Rosa. Then, Makabling Elementary School Principal localized the program and entitled it as Kindergarten in Action, or KIA. Okay, so I will explain this by and by. Then another program which is under the program or under the umbrella program of Project K3, Tagaytay City Elementary School also implemented a program called Inclusion for Kindergarten, or Program INC, which showcases inclusivity in the kindergarten program, regular children with the gifted ones. Next slide, please. So, what is Project K3? Project K3, kaklase kasama kita, is an inclusive education project that promotes provision of learning opportunities for children with special needs in an inclusive setting. Okay. Second, it is an inclusive education is given emphasis through Inclusive Education Caravan. It is a school-to-school campaign to orient all the schools, all the regular teachers and school principals to implement and accept inclusive education in the respective schools. It is also promoting the use of universal design for learning, wherein children under circumstances, multiple circumstances, could use multiple means of representation, multiple means of expression, and multiple means of engagement in a differentiated environment. And then the practice of index for inclusion, wherein the program should be included in the school, in the principal's school improvement plan. Okay, next slide, please. So here is hello. Next po. Next slide, please. I think it should be back. Another one. Oh. Yeah. One slide back, please. One slide back. Yes, that's it. Oh, it's gone. Hello? Hello? Okay, so it's the slide is explaining to us what BDO is all about. No, the slide about building developmental opportunities. No, the class home that is being put up by Makabling Elementary School. Hello, my slide is gone. Okay. Where is it? Okay, so building developmental opportunities for kindergarten pupils and learners with special needs through play, wherein they can play, learn, and grow together. May I have my next slide? Mhm. It's not appearing on the screen. Mhm. Okay. Can I be the one to present the slide? Hello. My slide is not appearing on screen. Okay. Is there a problem? A problem in the presentation?
I think
Hello.
it's visible. I think we have a technical issue, and I think we will move on to the next panelist, and we will come back to once after the third panelist's presentation. We will try to come back to the part that we need to complete in the panelist two. Our apologies to all the participants and to Dr. Manolo. We hope to sort this up and then rejoin later. So we will be moving to panelist 3. Panelist 3 will be Dr. Fatma Nishan. She started her career as an English language teacher, and she studied in various countries, including Australia, and she completed her doctorate in the Sultanate of Brunei Darussalam. And she would be looking through, probably relating it to the Maldivian context, the whole thing. We have had the experiences shared from 2 different countries. And Dr. Fatma Nishan, welcome.
Thank you. Should I start the presentation now, right?
You can. Yes.
All right. I hope you can see it now. Moderator, can you see the presentation now?
We can see.
Yeah. Can see. Okay, I'm starting now. Assalamu alaikum and good morning to everyone who has joined us on this webinar. I'm Dr. Nishan, and I'm going to start with the importance of early intervention for inclusivity and also connect it to the context of the Maldives. First of all, I would like to start to differentiate between the equality and equity. Now, in the first picture, I think most of you would have seen this picture, but in the first picture, you can see everyone has been given an equal opportunity to go and watch a football match. They are all there. They are able to access the football match. But when you look at the second picture, everyone can now see. Like in the first picture, one boy cannot see. He cannot see over the fence. Now, in the second picture, in equity, we have provided a support. Is there an audio issue? All right. In the second picture, you can see that he has been provided support so that we can also access it. So inclusive education is not about the placement. It is about providing equal access so that the child can optimize on the potential. As you know, the Convention of the Rights of People with Disabilities focus on pre and primary education, pre-primary and secondary education, but the focus of about early childhood. What can be done about early childhood? And in different countries, they have come up with different policies that embody the values. So, inclusion in early childhood, there must be values, there must be policies and practices that support the rights of the child and his or her family, regardless of the ability to participate. Then there must be, regardless of the ability, there must be equal opportunities provided for the child to participate in family activities as well as in the community and society as a whole. There are many benefits why early intervention is important. For example, as you know, the early intervention, the early childhood age is very important for language development and language acquisition and as well as cognition. Also, by being provided equal opportunities, the children are able to meet others and communicate and develop socially and behaviorally, and also their mental abilities are improved. Further, physical development also develops when they are physically developed and they are given the equal opportunity to engage and play and have access to others in the same age group. Now, looking at the capability approach, there are two principles that are focusing on the capability approach. That is the capabilities of the child, the functioning, and the difference. When we look at capabilities, this means that every child has a set of capabilities because each one is an individual. And these actions that they can do, what can they do, what are they able to do is meant as their capabilities. However, because they are children, they may not be able to identify their capabilities and they may not have realized what they are able to do because they are at a very young age. For example, we are adults and because of our experiences and the opportunities we have had in life, we know how to react to certain situations, how to communicate with people, how to engage in activities. But at a very younger age, the child may not have this opportunity, and as a result, they may not have experienced it, they may not be able to identify these capabilities. So the young children, usually the parents often have to speak to their children. And what happens is the parents, sometimes the parents are not even aware of what their child can do. I mean, sometimes they are unable to identify as parents. And some parents' expectations are very different and very high. So when the parents communicate on behalf of the child, it may not be really very relevant, very accurate even. And
Uh, Dr. Nisha, Dr. Nisha, just 1 minute. Dr. Manuel, can you switch off the mic? There is some feedback it is popping up.
Should I continue?
Just 1 minute. Still the mic is on. Dr. Manuel, could you? Nisha, please continue.
All right, thank you. Yes, as I was saying, the children may be young and they may not be able to express their capabilities, and some capabilities are already included in the curriculum, that is the literacy and numeracy, which is very good. So coming to the functioning is known as when the children are able to identify their capabilities and they have the freedom to actually practice and explore these capabilities. But we must all understand that there are differences, like all children will have differences. No two children are the same, even in the same family. So when we look at the differences of the children, you must understand as parents and as teachers and as educators, and even in the people of the community, we must understand there may be biological and genetic factors. There might be environmental differences, like the mother could have been exposed to toxins during the pregnancy. Social differences, such as access to social supports. Relational differences, such as language minority or economic status of the family. And family differences, differential treatment by family members, which is quite common. Now, when looking at the developmental system model, inclusivity in the early intervention is the core principle of this model, and it emphasizes the children should have access to normal settings as possible, much as possible, so that they get a normal and natural experience. And for infants and toddlers, it is mandatory in this system that they get the natural environments. So in the developmental system model in the early intervention program, it is very important that the parents and the teachers or the professionals in the same area should get coordinated and have a good integrated service which supports a lot of communication. Now, when we look at families are very important. As you can see, the role of families have been emphasized in early intervention. Families of children need a lot of information about what the child is going through, how to deal with it, and a lot of extra support. And parents' confidence in their ability, this improves when the information is given. The parents get confidence so that they can actually attend to the child's needs. And but if they are lacking this support, there is no support mechanism giving them extra support or information, then they can actually have a lot of distress about how to deal with this child or how can I help this child. And as a result, they may actually limit the access to early intervention of the child. So they need good parent professional help. And that is where the teachers are important. The teachers as educators must be ensure that both placement, not only just inclusion is not just placing a child in a mainstream setting. There must be instructions which is designed to meet the need of the child. And so the teacher has the roles of becoming the communicator, becoming the facilitator, the coach, and the model to ensure that inclusion actually happens. And some of the intervention strategies which are common are the universal design for learning and differentiated instruction. And it is more effective when both of these take place together, because then an individualized instruction, specially custom designed for the child's capabilities and the differences are there. And it should happen in an inclusive setting with communication and collaboration with the teacher and the parent and the school community, so that a very professional relationship is built. Now, why universal design for learning is important? Well, many children are coming from different areas, and they have different, just as I highlighted, they have differences in their needs, learning needs, their educational backgrounds, their interests, their capabilities in language, and also they may have different cultural backgrounds. Cultural in the sense what is common in one family background may not be in the other. So all of these diverse students, just as Dr. Julie has said, diverse students are there in a classroom, and the teacher needs to know how to provide education to all of these students. So that's why universal design for learning is there, and it has different areas together to for example, it has multiple means of engagement where students can engage in learning. There are different ways students can present. If one student can draw, the other student can make a presentation, the other student can simply write about it. So universal design for learning is very important. And then when we look at differentiated learning, teachers can differentiate learning in several ways. For example, the content, which means what is being taught, it can be differentiated. The process, how it is being taught, the product, how the children are going to produce what they have learned. And all of these, according to each student's readiness, their interest, and their learning profiles. So as a result, when differentiation occurs, it helps the growth of the child, the motivation to learn, and the efficiency. So in the early childhood inclusive approach in the Maldives, just similar to other countries, they are screened, they are identified, and once they're diagnosed, but they are just like according to the models, they are mainstream, they are in mainstream classes. And intervention classrooms are there in schools. For example, a child may be taken out like a pull-out method for 30 or 40 minutes in the intervention classroom, and one-to-one support is given, where some of the activities that go into one-to-one sessions are like parallel talking, repetition, using of visuals, singing, learning to wait and take turns, and learning to make choices, and learning to imitate. And this is very important during this early childhood level. And as you know, these are skills that they need to develop when they are becoming adults, when they are growing up, they need these skills. And also some sensory activities are also included in the Maldivian inclusive approach, early childhood inclusion approach. So that's all I would like to highlight on this. If there are, I will be waiting for questions posed by the participants.
Thank you, Dr. Nishan. Ami, as we have had some technical difficulties and still some difficulties lingering around, we would try to make some changes. Dr. Manala, we may not go ahead with the presentation as the time is like pressing us at the moment, but we will move on to the question and answer session, and there the panelists or Dr. Manala could be able to highlight on those areas that you would love to touch or you missed on the presentations as the questions go by. And of the question and answer session, this is how it's going to go. We have certain questions. We have a number of questions from the participants. We will definitely not be able to go through that in a couple of days. So we will be selecting few as we have to finish up by 12 noon Maldives time, that we will have only limited time available for us for the question and answer. But during the availability, the question may be directed to a particular panelist, but we would love to hear all the other panelists also adding to that, or rather the question is to everybody, and we would love to see that the three panelists adding to their experiences and sharing their point of view on we may ask a particular panelist to start the conversation, but all three will be answering the question as much as you want to put in. So let us start with this segment. I'll just try to read out the first question. The first question goes something like this: What does research say about the long-term impact of early inclusion, and how soon should we include a student with complex learning profile in a mainstream setting? I think the first panelist could start with the first question.
Thank you for this opportunity to answer. Well, I guess by and large, the research says the long-term impact of early inclusion, which I guess we see through good practice, is also early intervention as well. The long-term research says that it gives children a better opportunity to succeed at school, to make better friendships, to have better opportunities at sport and access to the community. But we're thinking long-term too, as in after-school options, in opportunities for employment or gainful engagement in the community as well. And I guess it's, as Dr. Fatma said as well, that one of the reasons for early intervention is also an economical one as well, because the research shows if we support children more at the front end when they're young, then the services they need in the long term, and this is a very general comment, are less when they're older. So there's many factors as to why, what the research tells us, and the importance of early intervention. Thank you. That's my answer.
Dr. Manala, if you would like to add to this. I think the microphone, still there's an issue. Dr. Manala, just 1 second. Dr. Nisha, you would like to add on to this?
I think as Dr. Julie has mentioned, the earlier the better for intervention, right?
Okay. We have a second question. Looks like this is from a teacher. As both a parent and a teacher, how would I play my role in school and at home in handling children in the early intervention level? I'll put this question to panelists too, Dr. Manolo, but still I think there are some technical issues there. I was not able to hear last time around. Dr. Manolo.
The audio is not on. I'm sorry. I had muted my microphone. So am I going to start to answer?
Yes, please.
Okay. So as a parent and as a teacher, how are you going to take the role in inclusion? Of course, we should have first and foremost, and it is being mentioned by Dr. Julie, it's the attitude. The welcoming attitude should be possessed by a parent and at the same time a teacher. You must first be the one to accept the inclusivity or the uniqueness of your child, so that inclusion will start within you as a person and as a teacher.
Dr.
Thank
Nishan?
you.
Yes, I would like to add something to that. It's very true that we have come across this very commonly, that it is very difficult for a parent to accept that a child
Mm-mm.
is the child needs additional support, and it is very natural for a parent as a parent to come to terms with it, to accept it, and because of that, the longer the parent takes time to come to terms with it, the child is missing out on early intervention, and this is very important that the child gets the intervention as soon as possible. So I would advise the parents to listen to the professionals and listen to their advice. And they are, especially they are experts and they have a lot of experience with such students. So once they are giving you a plan, once they are advising on you what and mapping out the child's future, educational future with you, it is very important for the parent to accept it, be very positive about it, because it's going to help their child to reach development, and take it as a very, very positive and come to terms with it and provide that support to the child.
Dr. Julie?
Thank you for those very thoughtful comments from my colleagues. I think that as a teacher and a parent, I think it's very important for us as teachers to support our parents as well. And because we don't know what's going on in their lives, the stresses that they face, we have the child for a certain period of time and then we end that. And I think too, as a parent, if you are a parent and teacher, I think it's really important that you take the time to look after yourself as well. And it can be very difficult to separate your parent life and your professional life. But I think if you have a good relationship with your classroom teacher, then that can make a very, very big difference in the way that you have confidence and abilities to conduct those dual roles. So that's important. Thank you.
Attention, all the panelists. When we are answering the questions or when we are discussing it, please keep the microphones on. Otherwise, it will be that we can put it also so that we can avoid the issue of feedback. So we'll go to the next question. The next question goes this way. How can we help with a child who takes speech therapy? What activities can we as a teacher do to help them improving their speech? Dr. Nishan, please.
I am really unsure about the speech therapy part, because I am completely on the inclusive education approach and the curriculum part of it. I think Dr. Julie or the other participant has shown a good presentation about some of the activities their school have done. Could you share some of those with us?
Thank you, Dr. Tafner. I think with speech therapy, the first, or having speech instruction in your school, I think the first thing that we as teachers should do is know as much as we can, because we're teachers, we're not expected to be therapists, but to have a very good awareness of development and speech development of what a typically developing student should be exhibiting. On top of that, if you do have a child with speech and language challenges in the classroom, it's about working very carefully with their speech therapist, the child's speech therapist, but also the child's parents as well, because I found some of my best teaching strategies I've derived from parents who have invested a lot of time and energy in speech therapy. So I think, as teachers, we're not expected to be therapists, but I think if you can use any of the strategies incidentally in your school day is really important. And that's about knowing how the child communicates, whether they have oromotor challenges or semantic and pragmatic issues that children with autism may have, or just general communication challenges around understanding language is really important. So, for example, with my children, I learned or taught myself how to do keyword signing, which is a type of sign language. I would do a lot of modelling throughout the day, sort of very gentle corrective measures, some examples, playing particular games, turn taking, etc. So they're my best recommendations of how to incorporate any strategies that you might be able to do incidentally and naturally. Because anything that you do to support children communicating, even the smallest things of enabling them to say yes or no. I used to just draw a Y on the top of my hand and a no on the other, N on the other one, and they could just touch my hand to make a choice. And that's really powerful in enabling a child to make choices during the day, as my colleagues have said, is really important in enabling children to make choices. Thank you.
Dr. Manola? Dr. Manola, can you please put the mic on? Sorry, this time around.
Yes. I always forgot to open my mic. One strategy that I find it very, very applicable is for kindergarten teacher to mirror the lips, the tongue, and how the teacher pronounce the vowels or the consonants, so that even though they are not speech therapists, they could transmit good or speech lessons to these children through mirroring. Yes, thank you.
Okay. We have another question, but the question is on preschool children. Any one of the panelists could start with it. The question is, what is an effective strategy for early intervention of the preschool children or the kindergarten children? Who's going to start? Dr. Manola or Dr. Julie or Dr.
I can start.
Okay.
That's a very big question, and as how long's a piece of string, I guess. But what we do here with going from kindergarten to formal schooling is we have transition processes. So all the information that comes from the kindergarten, the preschool, or where the early childhood setting is put in a portfolio and a report, and everything is put together so that when it goes to the formal school, that the receiving teacher has all the information on the child, and they meet with the parents, they meet with the child, they get to know the family as much as they possibly can, so that when the child comes to school, they have the best possible chance of starting on a strong footing and and some accommodations can already be put in place for that child so they have the best chance of success.
Dr. Manila?
I think one of the best strategies, although I will not say it is the best, no, but one strategy that could be used for early intervention is to provide them a natural learning environment that will develop their skills, especially the locomotor skills and their socio-emotional skills. Even though they are in the early years, they should be getting along with others, no, together with the regular children, and that could be one way of preventive intervention and a remedial intervention, so that added or upgrading of the disability will be prevented. Okay, so a learning environment that will provide them natural experiences. That is one of the strategy for intervention. Thank you.
Dr. Nisha may start, but the other panelists, could you please the microphone mute, please?
Yes, as the other two panelists have stated, that it is very important that the child is given a mainstream access, just like is stated in the principles of inclusion. And also, as Dr. Julie has mentioned, it is important for the transition portfolio to create the updated, and even if this is important, even if it is in the primary from one grade to another, when the child moves to the next grade also, this portfolio should be following the child throughout the grades until the end of the schooling, whether it is secondary schooling also, the IEP and all the progress. And this record should be handed over to the next teacher, so that the next teacher does not have to start from scratch to find out and ask the parent about what is being done and what is the progress, because the parents may not even have a very what can I say, a very strategic approach to it. They may know that there is a progress and they may tell, but this portfolio, this file should be following, the records of the child should be following from one level to another, one grade to another, until the end of the schooling. So as to provide a very quick and very ready environment for the child, so that the child doesn't feel distressed, the child doesn't feel left out, and the child get access to the most common educational approaches with the other age appropriate students. And if there are several interventions that can be given depending on the level of the child and level of the disability, whether there is a pull out method and how much time is the child going to spend with the professionals.
As we are going through a totally different situation globally, the issue of distance learning is very much in use. There are a number of questions from various participants on this particular subject. I would love to hear the experiences shared from the panelists on how best we can use the technology in the current situation and the new normal. Dr. Nisha, let's start this time. Can the other panelists put the microphone mute?
That is a very interesting question, as I have also done a previous webinar on how parents and teachers can actually use this situation to help the students during the COVID-19 situation where they can use distance learning. And very recently, I did a research or a case study on a school and how they actually conducted this and how the teachers felt about this. So first of all, I would like to share that experience as well. Now, for my research, I really contacted some parents who have students with special needs. And it was very sad to hear from some parents that they are very distressed. They felt very helpless. Students were given work, but they did not know how to approach it. The usual patterns and the routines were completely destroyed. Their children are not sleeping on time. They are eating any time they like, and all of these things were there. And some of the children were having tantrums, and parents are a bit scared. One of the parents told me, he's hitting me, I don't know what to do. And my other son also have a special need. I don't know what to do with both of them, because during the lockdown, other people cannot access me and help me out. So when I studied this, and then during the phase when teachers started teaching online, the situation completely took a very good positive turn. The students were happy to see the teacher live on webcam. And then once they started teaching, and some teachers did not use the webcam, but they were on conference call and using Google Meet and other platforms. The students really asked, "Can I see your face? Miss, can I see you?" So you can see how excited they were and how positive they have become. And then the parents were very relieved that this support is there, that even through this situation, using the technology, teachers were doing several activities. They were first establishing the connection with the students and making them aware of how to deal with the situation, whether they can go out, when they don't go out, what can they do, what are the hygiene measures. So a lot of visuals were used to show the students about the safety measures for COVID-19. And so that was the beginning of the platform. And the teachers themselves said, we have never taught online like this. We have never experienced this online. But the school really supported us. The school gave us a lot of training. We were taught how to do the lesson. And even though with uncertainty, we started this. And now we are very happy with this. We are also learning. We are also learning and establishing a connection. And the students actually progressed. The continuity of education has started. Maybe they don't still have that access to engage in learning with other students in the same classroom, but they are so happy to see the other students on video in the classes, and they are learning and they are back on the track. But the thing is, I always advise the parents to start a routine. Don't miss out on a routine. If they are even at home, stick to a routine, because the setback from all the hard work done by the school and the SEN teachers can be lost if the learning is not established. So do not feel distressed. Do not feel helpless. We are back on track, and the child is doing fine. We may take a little bit once they come back to school. I think the students are excited to come back to school even. So using technology, the school teachers have done a lot of drawing where they can show the drawings of the students on live camera. They do the lessons, and the students show their drawings. They are excited to express themselves. They tell us what they are doing, and I have observed some of the lessons, online lessons of these students. So we are back on the track, and we can use the technology to establish and maintain the connection until they and learning until they come back to the regular new normal classrooms.
Dr. Julie, if you may add, if you would like to, your experiences on this.
Thank you. Well, not all of our students, but many of our students in Australia are back at school. And I think with the lockdown and having to use a lot of technology in this country really highlighted how fragile inclusive practice actually is, because when things become very challenging, then it starts to highlight how much work teachers will go through to meet the needs of all of their students. And I guess with technology, there are some good points and not so good points, and it kind of depended really on how effective it was for children, depending on their challenges. So if they, say, had a physical challenge, then it was going to be very difficult for them to sit for very long and engage in lessons. Also, similarly, children who have very low social abilities would have a lot of, such as, say, children with on the autism spectrum may have had a lot of challenges engaging in lessons. And I think too, it was very, very demanding on families, because parents, a lot of parents had to work from home, and some are still working from home. However, what they were required to do was to be the child's teacher aide suddenly during the day, and they would be up all night then doing their formal work or employment. And so it was very, very, very challenging for parents. And but having said that too, some students really love technology, because we know some children with additional needs don't like school. So they're pretty happy about sitting at home all day and doing their lessons out of the classroom. So that's not exactly what we want for them. So I think, as I said, it highlighted all the great work that our wonderful teachers do, and I think that it highlighted the importance of inclusive education and how we must really focus and support it at all times. So, certainly different times.
The panelists, once again, a reminder to mute the microphones if you have it on. Dr. Manoga, would you like to add your experiences on this?
Oh, yes. I would like to add to what the two panelists have delivered. Particularly in our division in Santa Rosa City, technology is really a problem. Why? Because the bandwidth connection is very low, and because of the many households that are using the internet, there are shortage really. But then, through the help of our local school board, headed by our local government unit, the mayor help us to have a subsidy from the companies like Smart Globe and the other cable networks. And at the same time, the mayor, together with the Sangguniang, together with the city councilors, provided all our special children, and from children from kindergarten to senior high school, free tablets for use during the online studies. And that is very commendable, and I'm very proud to share that to all, that the support of the government officials are really there during this time of pandemic. Yes, and it really helps a lot in the online studies that our children are now experiencing. We have the school principals, together with the teachers and the parents, establish a core group, a chat group through messengers, and then that is the way how they communicate learnings of the children at home. And then they submitted the pictures or the screenshots from their tablets to the teacher, what skills are being developed at home by their children. We have what we call weekly kumustahan. They engage the teacher and the parents engage, at least once a week to look into the progress of the children, how they answers the questions on the modules being given to them, and through the online activities, and that is the way how communication was done through technology. Yes. Thank
As you're moving into the last few minutes, I'd like to give the panelists an opportunity to give your last word in a nutshell. And each panelist, I think we can whatever 30 to 40 seconds. We'll start with Dr. Nishan.
Yes, just to sum up the webinar about my presentation and what we have discussed about it, early intervention is very, very important, and early intervention is inclusive education is very important. So we have discussed about ways how we can actually implement some of the intervention strategies and teachers and parents to work collaboratively. It's very important for professionals and the teachers, the professional, the speech therapist or any other therapist working in the school with the school, and when creating the IEP, and the communication actually is very important for this, the role of communication, collaborativeness, and positive attitudes, as Dr. Julie has stated. So at the moment, we are doing very good progress towards inclusive education in the Maldives, even though we are at a very we were at a very early stage, and we are progressing, and we have progressed quite well, and so many new things have been included, and now there are revisions for the inclusive education policy as well. So a much better approach can also be implemented at the from what we have learned. We are learning lessons. We are on a journey as we are very new in the Maldives, but still teachers are doing a very good job. The parents are doing an excellent job, and we hope that during this journey, very good relationship and very professional relationships are maintained. Because our focus is the children, we are hoping to give a very equal education for them. Equity is very important, and as you can see, it can be only achieved through inclusive education. Thank you.
Dr. Manohar, your thoughts on.
Okay, so it's very unfortunate that I did not finish my presentation and my video presentation. Actually, the video capsulizes all what I want to share, and it is that inclusiveness of early childhood education should begin with a very good learning environment, a class home that will develop the child's conceptual or cognitive skills, numeracy skills, the sensory perception skills, the physical or the locomotor skills, the socio-emotional skills, and all other skills that a young child should develop, giving them the best opportunity in the classroom, which we call class home, wherein they can interact, they can learn together, they can play, they can learn while playing, they can hear stories, they can move freely, without prejudice, without discrimination, a learning environment that will provide them, a happy and enduring life that will be their guide in the future. Because when they grow up in a very good learning environment, this will eventually make up the totality or the totality of the child, being a grown up or a mature one. So I think every school principal, every teacher should ensure that our early learners should be developed and honed in a very conducive and natural learning environment. That's all, and thank you.
Dr. Julie?
Thank you. I can just very briefly build on what my wonderful learned colleagues have said today, that I think, and I I've been in inclusive education for a very long time, and I am always so heartened when I see examples such as my learned colleagues of best practice and really working very hard and very expertly in providing amazing learning environments for children and their families. And I think, underlying all of that is it's not difficult in some ways. It starts with us being kind and good to each other. And but as professionals, it's about us educating ourselves, engaging and being lifelong learners ourselves in how to best provide for children and families, and to provide the absolute best learning experiences that we can to develop their skills. And as so beautifully put by Dr. Manola, so that they experience a very happy life and find their place in the world. So thank you very much for listening to me today. Thank you.
I think as we are coming to the end of this webinar, it's important we appreciate the process that has gone into it. Thank you all the participants for joining in. It means a lot to us, and we hope that from the experts here, you also have learned something in the process. We would like to remind everybody to the participants to fill the feedback. The participants, definitely some of the comments that we have seen, we can see how appreciative they are for the panelists. Thank you, the panelists, on behalf of the participants, as well as from the NIE team, for taking time off and then being so committed to the whole process. And thank you for sharing your experiences. And this means a lot to us who are at the moment trying to find ways and means to accommodate inclusivity in our mainstream schools. As time pressing us, we got to wind up. But before wind up, I'd like to thank everybody who has been part of the webinar series. Not only this, the NIE team and the colleagues have put in a lot of time and effort in order to make it a success. So I'd like to thank all the panelists who have been on the 8 webinars, and a special thank you to the 3 panelists who are here today. It's not only today, you have spent a lot of time on and off air to make this a reality. Once again, thank you all. Thank you, the participants. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, NIE, for this opportunity.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. It was very enjoyable. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Nice meeting you, Dr. Jules and Dr. Rano.
Same here.
Nice seeing you and meeting you.